Can you hear me?
Yes.
Survived a cyclone. It sounds about right for my life.
Welcome. How are you? Rose McGowan, everyone. Rose, I don't know if you can see. I've got to send you a link, actually. I'll just put it in the notes.
I can hear you.
Great. Okay, I've just sent you a link in the chat. That's the...
What? Oh, okay, and go to that link?
There's a new YouTube stream. Yeah, we just went offline. I think maybe there was an issue with the storm. How are you? You survived a you survived a cyclone.
The storm for press cyclones and hurricanes and tornadoes, but
yeah,
this is my first actual cyclone.
Oh, really? Okay. Was it like Twister? I mean the...
Is it like what?
Twister, the movie rather than the game.
My signal was quite terrible. No, real life media stuff causing hubbub.
Hello.
Am I pixelated vocally?
Yeah, a little bit, but now back. I think we just some teething troubles. Yeah, how are you? How's Mexico?
Well, deep in the jungle.
Yes.
You know, I have a gate where I am.
Yeah.
Is there a delay on your end too?
I don't know. There's fine. I can hear you. Keep talking.
And the gate is broken.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on an LTE. Cool. That'll be better, I think.
Yeah.
We can try another time, or just annoy everybody at home.
No, it's fine. That's you're coming in. You're coming through perfectly clearly here now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear in the thing?
Okay, so I am deep in the jungle, and many trees are down, and the gate has no electricity.
Mm.
So I'm trapped, but okay.
Fantastic.
And,
I'm
I was
so
just
glad.
dancing to Kylie Minogue in my room, so all is well.
Okay, cool. Is it what's it, middle of the afternoon there, or about lunchtime or something?
But also seriously now, let's talk Rosecoin.
Yes, absolutely. So I just wanted to preface what we were saying by Rose and I here at the New Athens have been in discussions for some time about Rosecoin, which is her next big move onto taking the Rose Army that she's built up and giving it a voice, giving it its own economy, giving it its own ability to grow, to communicate, and to foster the energy that Rose has built up. So, what is Rosecoin? And we've been in discussions about it for some months. This is a brief overview. It's a cryptocurrency backed by the reputation that Rose McGowan has built up as an advocate and champion of women's energy and women's liberation, and then taking that reputation and turning it into the digital gold of cryptocurrency with a whole load of features which allow women to gain independence financially and imaginatively. And I really think that having 50% of the population who can sign up to a project is really quite exciting, don't you think?
52%.
52. Oh, yes. I mean, men do tend to die a bit younger. So what is Rosecoin? Well, as far as you and I have discussed, it is a cryptocurrency much like Bitcoin, which will be a store of value for women around the world, which will allow them to take their value out of like pounds, dollars, different currencies, which often have a lot of volatility, and will allow them to bet on one another and to bet on saving their their assets in the hands of one another in this network of the Rose Army, who all have Rose coin. Now, the benefit of this can be a physical coin. So we were looking, what is a cryptocurrency? What can a cryptocurrency be? And we came up with this idea of kind of like maybe a medallion, kind of like a classical coin. And on one side is the Rose McGowan kind of heads icon, and there's a tails icon of a fist holding a thorned rose on the tails. I think that's quite nice. So that's a physical. We build that as a physical manifestation of Rose coin, both as a membership and as a crypto. And then that will also then have an alarm on it as a physical coin. Hey Ed, Rose is on. We're talking about Rose coin, her new cryptocurrency, which we're putting together. We put it together for some time. Now we thought we'd work it out since this is Ed Mitz, everyone.
Hello.
A physical coin with cryptocurrency in it, held.
And you can trade it like a normal
normal crypto. Yeah.
So
that's held, in case there's anybody being coercive about money in that woman's life. She can keep money away. She can keep it in crypto, which has a passphrase which she'll memorize. Nobody else will know. You can memorize 12 words. That's the key. So it's not biometric. It's not. It's because actually, if somebody can take your fingerprint, then they can get access your cash. And then
psychometric.
Yeah, psychometric. Yes, that's a very good way of putting it. So your Rose coin is psychometric.
The first psychometric digital currency, Rose coin.
Yes. We've been talking about it for some time. How's it going out in Mexico, Rose? And what do you think? How do you think we can
It's going very well.
harness this energy?
It's a complete cash-based economy.
Keep talking.
Okay, sorry.
We can hear you.
You on a delay. So completely cash-based economy. And I've been thinking, at least where I am in the jungle, and I know in larger cities, it's still very cash-based. Mexico City, Guadalajara, for instance. And I think it could be, Bitcoin, Rose coin, could all be almost how, the machine age skipped over Ireland. They didn't get it, but maybe Mexico can jump straight from cash to coin.
Yes. So
in Africa, they don't have computers; they've got mobile phones.
Ireland skipped over the machine age and went straight, or not the machine age, the industrial. So I can't remember which, but they skipped over one and basically went straight to technology.
Yeah.
Which helped them out of their, years-long recession and poverty.
Yes.
In a lot of places.
So
I think Mexico has a lot of impoverished places, but it also has very wealthy places.
Yeah. It's tech infrastructure.
And it would be interesting to be able to jump it into Bitcoin.
Absolutely. We've been talking today
and skip
about
over the credit cards.
Tech infrastructure and how you're right. We can take the tech we have now and then build the right kind of culture so that we maximize its benefit to people, rather than mismatching, because the tech moves quickly and then society moves really slowly. That you see mismatches between advances in technology and a stagnant society which doesn't actually use it to its best benefit. And we can see that all across different sectors. One thing that's really exciting about what you've done with the Rose Army is you've built a movement which is truly transnational, and it's very open and inclusive to problems a lot of women face. And so what we've realized with Bitcoin and with other cryptocurrencies is that building an economy builds a nation, right? If you can trade with somebody, if you can exchange with somebody, if you can build a business with somebody, then you start to understand them and you start to be able to see them as your fellow citizens. And so what we've been looking here at the New Athens is looking into citizenship on the blockchain, seeing how we can build a blockchain republic or some kind of new constitution, new Bill of Rights, new citizenship. And so having something like Rosecoin, where we can say, okay, this is a technology, a platform that's open to 50% of the population from the word go, is kind of an exciting first step towards that kind of autonomy, right? Towards that kind of new democracy.
Lorenzo.
Yes.
I think, well, one, it's around 52% women, humans.
Yes.
On the planet. But I actually, one thing is that people seem to think what I do is for women. It's not, it's for humans, because everyone pretty much universally gets hurt. There are some unicorns, but not many. And the thing is, I often get asked, what is Rose Army? And I say, it's freedom of thought, but now it needs to be freedom of movement and freedom of finance.
Yes.
And to let people know that it's not mathematical, it's finance, and teach people the difference, because I was never taught the difference.
Yeah.
And I realize it's primarily the rich sons of the rich sons of the rich sons that get financial education. Everyone else gets told that it's numbers, ergo it equals math, which scares a large percentage of the public. And there's many, tests that they've done where women get ignored in mathematics and don't get taught finance. So it is, with a gentle and sometimes hard focus on women, I do everything for humans. And
Fantastic.
So Rose Army is welcome to all, and all who think differently.
Fantastic. And that's exactly what we've been working at here at the New Athens too. And I think we've established that we see eye to eye a great deal on some of the objectives. I love your three pillars of freedom of thought, movement, and finance. And I think that's really quite intriguing and something we can really work with. We've looked at the true, the beautiful, and the good here. We've looked at sort of Grecian triads of value. And one of what we've really seen with this lockdown and the plague and so on is that you've seen governments around the world start to say that money isn't a slave of capital. Money doesn't just have to go where the market tells you it's got to go. Money can be given and assigned with a kind of command economy to those areas where people need it, where or potentially where human value lies. And so we've started to liberate ourselves from this idea that money is only assigned by the open market and by profit, and instead we're starting to see governments and banks and so on say, well, okay, we're going to try and support people. How do we achieve that? So I mean, that's blown a massive hole in the side of these ideas. Well, universal basic income will make people lazy, and so on. And so I noticed you tweeted earlier, trickle-down economies do not work. We were looking at Francis too. I agree with Pope Francis on this. What is Jeff Bezos going to do with all of his billionaires and millionaires? Try being beautiful humans instead of wealthy men. Only then will your legacy survive. What were you looking at to get there, Rose?
I was looking at a Reuters article that was breaking down Pope Francis's latest screed, and it was talking about women and equality, which I think has been mismeasured pretty much for all time.
Yes.
And it was talking about, BLM and racism. He never named America, but it was quite clear, or USA, I should say, not Canada and Mexico, but the USA and others, you know, but really this one's quite, well, I'm not there now, but when I was, it was very evident what he was talking about. Pope Francis. And the trickle-down economic theory started or practice. You know, I remember late stage Reagan when I moved to America and how the Democrats, the centrists in USA adopted it.
Yeah. So trickle down economics.
And it doesn't work. We see that. The rich, you know, it's so boring to hear the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, but this is just massive. There is no middle class. And why shoot for that? You know, everyone should, I think, live comfortably as they wish to, be able to travel freely, be able to have health insurance, and be able to live within their means and their comfort level, but not to gross negligence of the rest of society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what we're seeing now, and I think you've alighted on it, is the failure of trickle-down economics. So this idea that the bigger that Wall Street or the City of London get, then somehow some of the wealth will rub off on the other people around. Now, that's not building an economy that works for people.
There's a line in a movie called A Streetcar Named Desire. And it says it's this woman who is, of course, eternally painted as imbalanced. And she says, I've always depended on the kindness of strangers.
Yes.
And that's what the 0.001% wants people to think, or I guess it's the 1%. They want people to come up to them and say, I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. And in that case, the 1%. But they hold on to it for dear life.
Yeah.
And they take it for no other reason than to have, you know, Larry Ellison needs a yacht like 2 inches.
I lost you for a sec.
I think humanity. Fuck off.
I lost you for. I just heard. What are you doing for humanity? Fuck off. And Larry Ellison needs a yacht. There was a little bit in the middle that we fell out. We got from A to C.
That's pretty much summarized.
Okay, that was the salient point.
So, is there something against people?
Did you get the Larry Ellison versus Jeff Bezos comparison?
Yeah. So how would you? Where would you place them?
No, I'm saying those dickheads. Those tiny walking thumb dicks, pardon my language, I just speak how I think. And in this case, I get riled up. I get angry. I think it's a righteous anger.
Well, it's okay. We're not on the broadcast media.
Everybody should be angry. Because I know Larry Ellison is in a war to see whose yacht can be bigger and can. Who needs that? In this time, in this period when they can heal global suffering in their own way.
Did he buy TikTok yesterday?
Which one, Larry Ellison?
Yeah. There was a bid. There was some kind of bid.
I've been in a cyclone, darling.
Okay. Larry Ellison's TikTok bid puts Oracle chairman back in the spotlight. Blah blah blah. Okay, so they are. Yeah, they're trying to buy it at the moment. So no, you're right. The kindness of strangers. I mean, I live in a monarchy where a German lady is better than me because of who her ancestors were, and that's okay because it brings tourist revenue into the island. And I don't think that medievalism is a very good basis for like adult human society. You're right that there's a trickle down in various kind of percolations, whether it's economic or social. And we don't need to depend on these strangers, whether they're bankers, whether they're rulers. We need to be the authors of our own lives. And we can use technology to achieve that. But what we haven't done yet is we haven't built the tools, for instance, like a blockchain phone, where Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs, who is Siri, by the way, they uploaded him, get to listen in this 1984 setup to everything that you do. And Mark Zuckerberg looks into your private life, into your sort of Minority Report, thought crime profiling. This is the technology that we're building today. We're building Chinese social credit systems, which then get re-imported through big tech into the West, where the smartphone becomes your passport into society, into polite society, into acceptable society. Otherwise, you're a hobo or you're an outcast, and there's no cash. And so we were talking about cash earlier. Oliver, you were saying?
I work in an office where you can't open the doors unless you've got the app on your phone to open it. So that's just one little Lego block in the bigger sort of digital Big Brother world. That occurred to me last week. Sorry, carry on.
So we're seeing this sort of appification, but this isn't crypto. This isn't self-authored currency. This isn't anything to do with independence or self-actualization, all these great things that technology can do. This is to do with command and control and taking a system that was built in China by American companies back into the West to make sure we're all stuck in our little
that's always the problem.
Livestock.
The enemy of
boxes.
The enemy of capitalism is sort of huge regulation from Big Brother, isn't it? Where they can trace every move, credit moves, and so on. So that's the argument against it. Sort of getting rid of cash is that everyone will be monitored. Everyone's being monitored.
Lorenzo?
Yeah. Yes, darling.
I must go.
Okay, let's check back in next week. We'll find a time. We'll get some proper video.
Are you finished with me?
No, I'm never finished with you, darling. That's
when I have better signal, hopefully.
Perfect. Okay, well, Rose McGowan, it's been fantastic. Catch you next week, and we'll discuss Rosecoin further.
Noches.
Buenas noches. Ciao, ciao. That was Rose, everybody. I think we may still have it. Fantastic. Rose McGowan discussing our new project, joint venture, Rosecoin, here at the New Athens. She's calling in from Mexico, where she's just survived a hurricane. Apparently there's a hurricane that's hit land there. And we had a bit of a faulty signal, but we started discussing in more detail some of what we've been looking at behind closed doors in our sessions in the past few months while she's been in exile in Mexico during the plague, looking at Rosecoin and looking at how we can build a cryptocurrency to empower people and large constituencies of people, like women, as she says, humanity, but women in particular, or like with another project we've been cooking up here at the New Athens, VeggieCoin, all vegetarians. That's 500 million people. There's like 4 billion women. Looking at these large constituencies might be a way that we can start building something that's anti-fragile for the future with tech. And getting back to your point, Oliver, about matching the tech infrastructure to the cultural layer.
Yeah, catching up, achieving parity, both cultural and technological parity in both directions would be a nice, place to start, place to achieve, place to arrive at. So Rosecoin, it's essentially a store of value, and different to cash, you could assign value to Rosecoin depending on however you want to assign it. Essentially, so let's say if you could trade in good deeds,
yes,
in Rosecoin and you could kind of
is it different from the
Rosecoin? A woman's work is never done.
Is it different from the Chinese credit system?
Yes. So essentially, the idea about we first came up with this concept of VeggieCoin back in 2016. Of an ethical, what would an ethical cryptocurrency look like? And we were looking for a constituency that would be able to hold together this new kind of polity, this new kind of nation, this new kind of economy, and like vegetarians who could trade with other vegetarians, and so buy like a vegetarian smartphone because it means it's been made by other vegetarians in a vegetarian supply chain. Whereas you can't buy one now. That's quite interesting as a means of creating this new economy of people who are going to work out for one another.
A values economy.
Yes.
Values is the thing. Values is the thing. You've got to
Yes.
change people's values. Like,
Well, no, you've got to.
Rose is talking about people having their values set on a yacht. And
Mm.
that's what we have to change, in my view. It's values is the key word.
Yeah. I mean,
As
although
soon as you change people's values, and they no longer think, well, I'm worthless if I don't have a yacht.
I
key.
agree with you, but I would say that there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting a yacht.
No, of course not.
Biggest in the world. But yeah, you're right. It's like whatever your values are, it would be the in the eyes of the current financial system, that different value systems aren't viewed equally or equally balanced. So a good deed isn't necessarily paid for in cash in the same to the value which it might be intended or interpreted as.
Yeah.
So with a system like Rosecoin, perhaps you could you can sort of democratically assign values to things.
Yeah. So I mean,
whether it's a big yacht or not.
So the problem here, the problem we come up against here, is the Reichsmark. So a very good example of this pegging of a currency to a human labor in this case was the Reichsmark in the 30s in Germany. So before all of the war and so on, there was an economic miracle in Germany before the Second World War with the rise of the Nazi Party, which was a workers' party, and people sort of forget this. They think it somehow was conservative. Oh no, these were all considered to be socialist policies, and so National Socialism is the same as the socialism in one country of Stalin. Right? They had a lot of these National Socialist projects, and the one in Germany. Said, okay, well, we're getting the Deutschmarks of the Weimar Republic in the 20s, massive hyperinflation. You're taking home a wheelbarrow of Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread. People are starving, people are suffering. How do you reform the currency and prevent overturn this hyperinflation that we're experiencing? And so what the Nazi Party did was it said, okay, well, we're going to peg one Reichsmark to an hour of human labor. So it was a work coin. So once you made that matching of 1 hour of human labor, which we know has intrinsic value, like your good deed, we know the good deed has value. We know that one person surviving for one day, like in a state at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he's got his water, his shelter, and his food, and he's got his clothing, and he's got his space in order that he can then do gilding or create art or music, as we're seeing with Ed here tonight. If we find this unit of human value, whether it's an hour of labor, whether it's a good
exactly
deed, and then we peg our value to that, and so then that loaf of bread isn't a billion Deutschmarks; it's one rose coin.
But that's exactly in a way the question of relative value is the whole problem again, value, because of a doctor obviously being paid a lot more than a bin man, and this is the question, really, isn't it?
Well, this is what we're seeing with essential workers in this lockdown policy, and we've been featuring their stories on the show last week. That they don't want clapping, they don't want a vote of thanks, they don't want a certificate, and they certainly don't want a packet of Christmas in the mail.
Virtue signals.
They don't want virtue signaling, they want cash. And the way to make a nurse or the key worker happy is go out and give them some cash. Don't clap at them, that'll just scare them off and make them angry. So that we have that from the horse's mouth of essential workers, not like us, not like free press journalists, but like medical professionals and so on. They need your cash, everyone. And so this is getting back now to how you start valuing things. So
that is the question. That's why I think these apps that compare values around the world with such things as sort of huge distributed ledger technology can enable values to be evened out worldwide. So if ever you decide to make a purchase online, you could scan every single similar product in the whole world and regulate the price.
So we've started. So we've started to look at. At this idea of of regulation of command economy of regulation of prices.
So that's
right?
the key, because some guy doesn't know what some other guy is charging 10 blocks down the road necessarily, and that's essentially what happened, isn't it? We don't have enough information at our fingertips, so something like blockchain technology can help with that.
Yes. So what we've really got to ask is where is human value? And at the New Athens, we've gone back to the Grecian triad of the true, the beautiful, and the good. Like these three kind of metrics of looking at where value might lie. And so somewhere, if it's the most beautiful solution, it's probably optimizing something about it. If it's the truest solution, as we were discussing with misinformation, it's going to head towards yes. It's
morally aerodynamic.
Yes, yeah. We're taking the friction out in the wind tunnel, and we're optimizing the model. And so if it's the most good, if it's the best deeds, then again we're optimizing again a different metric. And so if we look at Grecian value, that's where we can find it. We can find it in art, we can find it in music, we can find it in architecture, we can find it in the state. And we've lost that with this slavery to capital, to the value economy, where the market has to decide where all the value is.
Exactly.
So all the value might be in PR or in human resources or in credit default swaps and complex CLO structures on Wall Street.
Like the sort of banking class, in a way, were just milking money out of sort of providing advice to investors, weren't they? And which is a sort of leech-like. You could argue it's sort of leech-like, can't you? It's not really necessary in some sense.
Well, so financialization is, we discussed financialization. We looked at that Piketty graph, where on the I think our first or second show, where you could see from 1971, when we went off the gold standard till now, that you had this bifurcation of the total GDP divided per head versus the wage of the average worker in the Western economy, right? So that this distance is the financialization of the
Lorenzo's
economy.
drawing a graph here that you can't see, ladies and gents.
Okay. Yeah. So I can show you actually the graph. We maybe go and have a look at it because it's available to us. Piketty graph. Shove the screen on. Financialization. So, put a Z in it. Put a Z in it, people. Oh God, which one is it? It's got all the bloody graphs. Average wage. Here, is it that one? Yes, here we go. Thank you, Google. Here we go. So I can zoom in perhaps. So here's your problem, Ed, illustrated. So it starts in 1971 when we went off the gold standard, but you can start seeing if you look at the longer graph, that these two lines plot together from 1971 to 1980, and then they split. So you Gordon Gekko, Wolf of Wall Street, greed is good, is heading up in this blue line, and then
Describe it with the mouse.
So here you have the Wolf of Wall Street, kind of greed is good, Gordon Gekko, blue line from 1980 up to, well, it's 2014 on this graph with a little bit of a dip, but not much of a dip for the financial crisis here. Just by the label real GDP per capita, we've got a little dip for the financial crisis, but not much. It didn't prevent the financialization of the economy. And then we have this bumbling red line bumbling along, which is the median weekly earnings of full-time workers. So this is like an auto part engineer in Detroit, right? So that his wages are kind of stable, and of course there's another element of this graph of the value of the dollar declining because of inflation. So his value is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, over time, and this is getting larger and larger, and this is getting larger and larger and larger here
I mean,
on Wall Street. So what this is saying is, if you divide all the wealth generated that year in the nation by the number of people in the nation, that's the number you get.
I see.
And then if you take the average earnings of the average guy, it should be this in a society of equality. Yeah, it should be equally shared. Yeah, you all vaguely.
That would be the ultimate, wouldn't it?
One human hour.
To be in a cooperative government. Yeah, so everyone's a little.
So what if your expectation,
not in someone's bank account and being paid off on a big.
And so on. Money makes money, but it's Oliver, your falsifiable Popperian hypothesis for the economy is 1 human hour of labor is about the same value because everyone lives to 80. And so if you divide their lives by the number of hours that are in it, they're about the same. So it's a resource we have about an equal value, an equal supply of.
If there's the least morally bad way of quantifying a life, a pretty objective.
Yes.
Well, an objective. I would say the most objective way of defining a human life is number of hours.
Yeah.
But I would sorry to keep underlining, but joules is about energy expired.
Yeah.
Like the physically larger you are, the more joules you'll expire just by walking around.
It depends. If you're using the brain is a very hungry organ, but I'm not sure how hungry it is by comparison to going to the gym. In terms of joules, I don't know.
No,
do you eat?
But if we're trying to quantify human life, divide it into measurable pieces, time is about as fair
a metric.
Time
you can get. So our objectively fair metric is time.
Well, it's sort of
annual
basis. It doesn't.
And so if on average, controlling for people's like illnesses and dying in car accidents, you get a pretty much even supply of hours in a life. Then if we're looking through this end of the telescope, and then we come up with our falsifiable Popperian hypothesis of, what do we expect that to look like? In that case, we expect it to look like the blue line and the red line here track to one another, because the economy will produce a whole load of wealth, and then that will be shared out among all the people producing it in about an even basis. Because whether you're doing an hour of human resources, or whether you're doing an hour of kidney surgery, or whether you're doing an hour of street sweeping, or whether you're doing an hour of farming, maybe the human resources isn't quite as valuable. But that's not the way around that we see it in our financialized economy. But if we see that in terms of, are you doing useful work, then we should be paying people about evens, because maybe you can then control for the mechanization, AI kind of, maybe you don't need a street sweeper if you've got like a robo little street sweeper thing.
You don't need to be a king or a street sweeper. Sooner or later you dance with the Reaper, as we learned from Bill and Ted. That's some Bill and Ted
dancing on the ridge with death at the end of Seventh Seal.
There you go.
The Ring of Roses. But that's not the case. Certainly not since the 70s. Now, let's find a better version, because it goes from 1971. So our hypothesis has been falsified by the data that we see.
There's a slight problem with it, because obviously there's a situation of someone being just very highly skilled and their work being worth 10 hours of that someone else.
Great. Okay, so then we have...
And also the sense that someone can work a long time for seemingly nothing, developing a skill. And then suddenly...
So when you talk about
capitalize on
who owns the innovations in labour?
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just saying that
if you come up with a better way of doing something...
Yeah, some people just have a knack for doing things, and they just think laterally they get things done quickly, and arguably they can just make stuff happen and get rewarded.
So what we need is we're not looking at just time slogging away. We're looking at some kind of efficiency or quality. So so here we are. We're doing economics. So we're looking for some efficiency or quality quotient. because you might be doing something with innovation.
Yeah, and then also in the world of unique skill, that's when it just goes off the Richter scale, isn't it? I mean, it just goes off the.
Oh, and so then you
kind of
have
measuring.
creative skill.
Where you know, someone is just getting millions of pounds for whatever, just rolling out of bed in the morning and doing whatever with a paintbrush.
Oh yeah, so where Picasso ever signs a leaf, a napkin, and that's worth a lot of money.
That's worth his
in
meal.
a way, I'm essentially
more so.
Well, those are all the problematic variables.
So,
of the whole business.
but yeah, I mean, so one of these solutions perhaps is something like a guild of your peers. So how do you reward people? Well, you say, well, is this a good hour according to your fellow guitarists?
But then that's
street sweepers.
That's the old academy problem, isn't it? The academy sort of ganging up, and then you end up with this.
Then you have the problem of the guild
academy, and people who are sort of not allowed into the academy. And they put on the anti-academy exhibition, etc., and you get.
So then you have a guild. You have a fascism of guilds, like medieval guilds. Okay, so now we have. See, every time we can turn it over. No, but there is.
Well, this is the aerodynamic. This is the water running across the stone to make it smooth.
Yes,
this is what we're doing.
Yeah. So
it's the same.
So we need to then control for some of these
technology which can help.
Yeah. So that's then we're just looking at the problem set.
Yeah.
We can look at the solution set.
Because I personally don't think that Picasso's should be worth quite as much as they are, but I do think they should be famous.
Okay.
So I don't think, because for example, I thought, money. I don't think it should be so important. Put quite simply, but I think they should be famous because I personally think they merit it. Just so happens that in this case,
well, the value is based on the scarcity. So Picasso is dead.
Yeah, partly.
And there's only a limited number of Picassos, unlike oil or these particular objects in the world. Before it died, means, and they're in the catalogue, means that they have this marketable value because of the scarcity. So again, we're going back to saying the only relevant metric of value is supply and demand curve scarcity.
But it's not just that, it's because certain people own it and they have an investment in that, which has a history of them buying it in auction rooms, and that's a sort of relative.
What's Malthusian? Is it Malthusian?
Yeah, with the population going up and down with
according to resources available.
Yes, so you have Malthusian population growth is
that's
a massive overproduction.
Number of lions and number of antelope on the savannah.
Yes, they ratchet up in a kind of arms race.
Yeah.
So you'll have too many kids, and then loads of kids will die off because they don't have enough food. Yeah. And then you'll have fewer kids, and then you'll have another cycle. So it's a boom and bust of population. It's an economic boom and bust of population, which is very deleterious to pleasure or to like good outcomes in life, because so the command economy idea says, well, we don't need to only do Malthus. We can do planning. So we can say, okay, we'll shave off the top of this to shave off the bottom of that, so we don't have to have all these mass die-offs. So yeah, you're right. That then if you then say, okay, well, we're going to plan we're going to plot a more aerodynamic route rather than yawing around and having these booms and busts. But we've allowed ourselves into, as Ed has identified with the Picassos, this economy where only supply-demand curve scarcity, like is it scarce or is it abundant, is the only place where we're willing to say that value lies. We're not trying to say that the Picassos are very beautiful, or that they make you have original thoughts when you look at them, or even that they
Well, partly a
get you
democratic
sex
thing.
when you show people who you're attracted
Partly
to
a
the objects
democratic
that you
thing,
know.
because more people said they were of value than those who didn't, and they bought them, and they said they were worth a lot
It's
of
not
money.
democracy in the sense that if you ask somebody in some Kalahari bushman about Picasso, he won't necessarily rate it over and above some food or other necessaries for hunter-gatherer life. Maybe he'll say it's maybe he will think it's aesthetically pleasing. The Kalahari Bushman may appreciate the Picasso on an aesthetic level, or think it's valuable because of its beauty, or because of perhaps the social construct of like how it looks. Other people value it, but you can find a lot of people in the world who don't value Picassos.
I know, yeah, exactly.
And who would probably not
I like
care.
I know what I like, and I like what I know. It's definitely not Picasso.
That's the word from Nottingham, everybody. The news from the north. So we've had Rose finally got through on the technology that we have, talking about trying to make more more aerodynamic economy in a wind tunnel with some metrics of value. And
isn't that what it's about though? So comparative, relative value, trying to even out value.
Yeah. So okay, we're evening out this Malthusian curve, getting rid of the peaks and troughs, and trying to arrive at a more optimized solution with more planning and more.
Why should a lawyer charge, £600 a minute, whatever? Why? What can we do to stop them? Seriously. Well, I mean, okay,
but you don't need to stop. But the thing is, you don't need to stop them. This was the whole idea with Vegecoin, and it is the whole idea with Rosecoin, is that you don't need to shut down what they're doing.
Why not?
You can just build a better thing next to it.
Oh, but that would just
eventually
bring them down relatively to the
it's relative value.
Yeah,
exactly what you said. You say you don't need to stop them.
Okay.
You can just focus on you.
Yeah.
And this is
so the bin man just says, all right, I'm not doing anything else.
I'm going to pay myself
£60 an hour.
No, the thing is to get a different metric of value.
Okay.
So, let's take Rosecoin. You get 60. Let's say you get 60 Rosecoin an hour for doing an hour's labor that 90% of your peers think is a valid hour's labor. And there'll be a regulatory, like a governor on a steam engine. There'll be some little spinning jenny somewhere saying, well, what if the guild is corrupt and they're all awarding money to one another. Yeah. So the thing is to take the system that exists and put your value in another system, put your labor in another system. Whether it's art, whether it's essential work. We need infrastructure work. That's what we've seen is infrastructure work has been persistent throughout the lockdown.
What do you mean by that?
Well, whether it's sweeping the streets or making sure the electricity is on, or the water's working, or the sewage is being pumped out of
realised just how important,
or treatment in hospitals, or
shelf stacking.
Yes, exactly. Logistics and haulage. Logistics and haulage. Production of new roll, the new paper money, that new currency floated on the market. The Federal Reserve, the Bank of England toilet paper note, which we've experienced during lockdown policy, about as much as value, about as valuable as the pound or the dollar, considering considering the dollar has lost 99% of its value in the past 100 years. So if you did one of our days' labor in dollars in the early 20th century, by the mid 20th century, you may as well not have done it if you kept the notes under your bed, because the value would have inflated away. So
I think for me that's the big question. Doctors, lawyers, okay, it's different from captains of industry, but we need to figure out why certain people earn such a lot and why others don't. In my view, and it's easier to do now because of technology. I think
you could spend your time figuring it out, or you could leapfrog everyone and just earn it, and then you wouldn't complain about it. Do you know what I mean? That's funny, isn't it? It's like, because I'm sure people who earn the money, who earn the big bucks, don't complain about
wonder.
the
Of course
fact
not,
that
of course not.
But they don't wonder
race.
how
Like,
you become a starving
It's
artist.
never.
How do you
yeah.
become a starving artist in
What
a
are you trying
garret?
to say? What are you trying to say?
How do we achieve being a startup in a basement? If only I could become a startup guy. I mean, I'm so liberated,
Yeah. If only I could find the hunger.
Spend a
to
couple of
drive.
weeks in
Yeah,
Paris,
if
like
only, how do I lose all of my
money.
wealth? And
How do I swap this carrot for a stick?
yeah, exactly. Well, it's like Thomas More. It's like the hair shirt and the self-flagellation.
Yeah.
There is then a drive towards that, even with the Chancellor, Lord Chancellor. He wears a hair shirt because he wants to punish him. He thinks he's a
It's not
sinner.
because I begrudge them whatever they've got, their little sort of biggish little house, whatever. But it's the people who
You've probably got a better address.
Yeah, probably. But what I mean is,
in terms of
people who can't even afford.
nobody even lives in Westminster.
Yeah, it's true. But it's the people who can't even afford to sort of, I don't know, sort of educate themselves or do just the most simple sorts of things.
Yes, absolutely. And so we need to find where that value lies. And so Rosecoin is the first step on that route. And I'm very glad that we've announced it here tonight on the New Athens Live on this, the 4th of October, 2020, Sunday. Let's start the new week with a new think tank, with a new tank up of Rosecoin. We want to get your thoughts on it. Talk to us on the net, everywhere at the New Athens. We'll have this video up and we'll do some clips out of it. We're going to do some new documentaries and new content forms for you, and we'll be broadcasting 1 hour every day this week, whether from here or from our other bunker. That will be up for decision, but we'll work it out. And we realised that Andrew Neil doing an hour a week, we can do at least as well, because we have the startup hunger in our basement. We don't want to be outdone by Andrew on Spectator TV.
We don't want to be marred by his success.
Oh, how witty! What sparkling repartee! So yes, freedom of thought, freedom of movement, freedom of finance. These are Rose's 3 pillars of her notion of where Rosecoin can go. That's really exciting to us. We've been looking at the true, the beautiful, and the good in the Grecian triad of value, which I think we can bring the two together and create a new democratic reality using blockchain tech. That's really exciting. So I think we maybe have some music from Ben. That's so we'll set that up, and so that's